Hey everyone, Mr. DVB here. So with 2020 as a year wrapping up, finally, we are going to be looking to the bright future of the year 2021, where there is a ton of games coming out that I'm looking forward to. So in this video, I'm going to be ranking my top 10 most anticipated video game releases of 2021. Before I get onto my top 10, I do have one quick honorable mention, which is for Halo Infinite. Now, I haven't really played a ton of the Halo games, to be completely honest. I've done a little bit of multiplayer with my friends, and I've tried out most of the campaign for Combat Evolved, but the other ones I honestly haven't really touched. Overall, I mean, I think they're fun titles, but I'm just not a huge fan of the series. When it comes to Infinite, obviously, a lot of people were very disappointed by the gameplay showcase a few months back. I thought it looked fun from a gameplay standpoint, but from a graphical standpoint, for, being a showcase of what the Xbox Series X could do, it was extremely lacking. It looked like the kind of game that could be running on the base Xbox One, at launch. It just didn't look special whatsoever. The graphics were not the best. There was lots of pop-in textures and really poor draw distance. Just not a showcase for what is allegedly the most powerful console. And because of that, I didn't end up getting an Xbox Series X this year. I was planning on it, but there's really no titles coming out on the Xbox Series X that I care about between now and, October 2021, or whenever they decide to release the game, since it's been delayed till fall of 2021, so an entire year delay. But, they've been working on it, better graphics and stuff are coming, and hopefully the game will be more interesting looking. Otherwise, I mean, I think the fact that it's going to basically be an open world Halo game, that could be kind of interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. But yeah, that is my honorable mention. Now let's get on to my actual list. So in 10th place, we have Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Now, I haven't actually really completed any of the other Ratchet and Clank games. I own the 2016 one that came out on the PS4. I've tried it out a little bit, multiple times. I've probably played the first hour or so of it, like 3 or so times in my life. I can just never find myself getting really into it, to be honest. So I'm going to try to finish that game before Rift Apart comes out, because obviously this is a sequel to that game. But from what we've seen of Rift Apart so far, I think it looks pretty cool. First of all, it definitely looks like a good showcase for what the PS5's SSD can do. We've seen some footage of, the characters basically teleporting between a bunch of different locations, well in gameplay. And it's really seamless, and that's something that you probably just couldn't get on previous consoles. So that's really cool looking. Ray tracing, all that stuff. It looks nice visually, and so I think it could be a very fun family game. I just haven't really gotten into the previous entry, and I'll have to do that before I play this one. So yeah, Rift Apart. In 9th place, we have Gran Turismo 7. Now, this is kind of an interesting pick, because I normally never play racing games. There was one I played like a decade ago on the PS3, and then otherwise, I think I got Forza Horizon 4 when I got my Xbox One X. That's it. I just don't play racing games. They're not something that I find to have a lot of lasting appeal. I maybe play them for a couple of hours, and that's it. I do like Mario Kart, however. That is a racing game I do like. But in the case of Gran Turismo 7, the reason it's on this list, and it's a funny one, but it's literally just because of the DualSense controller. Because of the PS5's controller, I think this game could be super awesome, as far as giving us, just a new level of immersion through the controller. I think the haptic feedback part up with the triggers, the sensation we'll get from a driving game could be amazing, because I've yet to really experience anything driving related coming from the PS5 controller, and this could be, the big game to do that. And that's literally the only reason I'm looking forward to it. It's kind of funny. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be a great racing game. I know the Gran Turismo games are normally supposed to be very good from, racing game standpoint. But yeah, that's my main reason. But I'm sure, ray tracing, graphics, all that stuff's gonna be very good. But yeah, I am looking forward to it, and this might be, one of the first racing games I actually like. We'll see. In 8th place, we have Far Cry 6. So I have previously played Far Cry 4 and Far Cry 5, both of which I really liked. For about the first half, I think they're great games, and then the second half usually gets a little bit repetitive. There's certain aspects of those games I don't love, to be honest. I think the stories are pretty weak, and I don't really ever remember the protagonist that you're playing as, but they tend to have decent villains. I know Voz is supposed to be one of the most memorable of all time, but I haven't played Far Cry 3, so I can't really speak for that personally. But with Far Cry 6, the reason I'm looking forward to it is because of the villain. You have one of the best villain actors in recent memory, Giancarlo Esposito, who was in Breaking Bad. He's in The Mandalorian. You have him playing the main villain, and that right there, it should be awesome. I think he quite possibly could beat Voz as far as being the best villain in this series. Otherwise, the setting of the game seems to be different for Far Cry because they're typically set in either very tropical locations or, very nature-filled locations, like kind of out in, I think 5 was in Montana, so there was lots of forests and like bears and stuff. 6 seems to be going for something different, and from what I can tell, is set more so in a, urban area, like in a city. And it's specifically the country the game is set in is supposed to be based on Cuba. It's like a fictional version of Cuba, and so I think that'll be really interesting. Obviously, there's still going to be some nature aspects to it, I'm sure. I mean, you have to have animals in Far Cry and stuff, so I'm sure there'll be like forests and jungles and whatnot that you can explore, but for the most part, it looks like it's going to be set in an urban area, which I think is quite interesting. So that should be cool to see that different aspect of Far Cry. Obviously, there's a villain. I think because you could do this with 4 and 5, I think I'll probably play the game with friends. Which I didn't really do in the past. I played them sometimes with friends, but never completely. I think I'll do it completely this time because that could make the experience a lot better overall. And I'm looking forward to Far Cry 6 overall. I think it looks cool from what we've seen. We haven't seen any gameplay yet, obviously, but I mean, just from what we know about the game's story, from what we know about the actors in it and stuff, looks pretty interesting. So Far Cry 6, I'll be definitely picking up. In 7th place, we have Gotham Knights. Now, initially, I wasn't that excited for this game. There was definitely a lot of intrigue surrounding it because, it was another Warner Bros. Montreal game. We knew it was going to be Batman-related, and a lot of people were thinking it was going to be another Arkham game, perhaps a prequel to Origins. There was, like, the Court of Owls being teased, and it was a lot of, interesting stuff like that. And then when the game was revealed, it was just the opposite of what I wanted. It wasn't, like, a single-player Arkham game where you're playing as Batman. It was kind of a Bat family game where there's like, Barbara, like Batgirl, Dick Grayson, I think is like Nightwing, Red Hood, and I think one other character, right? It's like the Bat family. Bruce Wayne's supposed to be dead. Court of Owls was the villain, and it's kind of a multiplayer game, and I was just turned off by that initially, but the gameplay that we saw, like, it did actually look pretty good. Graphically and stuff, I thought it looked nice. It didn't look super realistic, but I thought it looked good. And it could be a fun game to play with friends. I'm just really hoping we don't have another Avengers situation. This game has to have a reason to play it. I'm not the kind of person who plays looters. I don't find it interesting to just play a game so that you can get a cooler outfit. That's not a game to me. That's just boring. So Gotham Knights has to give me something interesting. If it can give us a decent story that can be played with friends, and good boss fights and just stuff like that, because we did see like a Mr. Freeze fight, which looked interesting, right? If they can give us that stuff, then I don't honestly mind the idea that they're going for a more online experience. It could be cool. Just really hoping that the RPG elements or the looting elements, I don't know how in depth they're going to be. Just really hoping we don't have another Avengers on our hands, because that would be severely disappointing. But from what we've seen so far, the game looks pretty cool. I just don't entirely know what we're going to be getting with it. In 6th place, we have Hogwarts Legacy. So I'm a pretty big Harry Potter fan. I haven't really been into the franchise that much recently, to be honest. There just hasn't been anything about it that I care about. Not a big fan of the Fantastic Beasts movies. I haven't even watched the second one yet, so that kind of tells you. But I used to love the original Harry Potters, and so being that the Wizarding World is one of my favorite fictional universes out there, the fact that we're getting a giant online RPG Hogwarts game, that's awesome. That's super cool in my opinion, and I think this game has a lot of promise. From what we've seen so far, which isn't a whole bunch, we've gotten a trailer that showed a tiny bit of gameplay, kind of, or at least shots that were in game. It looks really cool. It's supposed to be, from what we know, like an online RPG Harry Potter game. I believe it's online. I could be wrong about that, but I'm very sure it's online, or at least it can be played online. Where you basically, you can find, fantastic, mystical creatures and whatnot, and, just basically learn spells and stuff. It's set in the 1800s, late 1800s, and all that stuff just sounds so promising. This giant game that you can play online with friends, it could be an amazing experience. So, again, I'm willing to experience online games like this. It's not like I'm somebody who hates online games. I love a lot of online games. I want an online game that's just special for once and isn't just, a typical multiplayer, either looter or team deathmatch type thing, like a very generic online game. Something like this, a very big, expansive title that's, primarily focused on being online, could be really interesting. And so I'm hoping Hogwarts Legacy can deliver that experience that I've been wanting from games for a while now. We'll see, but so far it seems pretty promising, and just another, I guess that's 3 PS5 games on this list already. So yeah, really looking forward to that game. Alright, in 5th place, we have a game that was on my list last year that sadly got delayed, and that is LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. Now, this honestly would normally be higher on my list, probably 2nd place, but the reason it's this low is because the marketing's been terrible. There's been such a lack of marketing for this game. We've had, I think, 2 cinematic trailers and 1, in quotations, gameplay trailer, because there was probably about 10 seconds of gameplay spliced into that video. The marketing's been terrible. You know, the game has been announced for well over a year and a half, and we've had no gameplay shown pretty much. It's super disappointing from that standpoint, but there's so much promise towards this game because the concept of it alone is great. You know, all 9 Star Wars films being told in this, that's a really cool thing. On top of that, I remember when the game was announced and they hadn't really said how it was going to play out, I said, oh, it would be amazing if LEGO could, you know, have it so that you could fly from planet to planet. That's not going to happen. They're not going to put in the work. And then they announced that you could fly from planet to planet, and I lost my mind. They said that, you know, while you're traveling in space, a Star Destroyer might come out of hyperspace and you have to fight it, all right? Like, that stuff just sounds so awesome. It sounds like it's going to be a massive LEGO game because I believe there's supposed to be something like 300, 500 plus characters, 500 plus ships. There's going to be so much content packed into this game that I can't wait for it. I'm very, very excited for LEGO Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. I don't think there's a confirmed release date right now. I believe it's rumored to be May, but I don't think there's anything confirmed. But yeah, I cannot wait for this title. We just need some freaking marketing to kick into play now because, you know, it's been really disappointing so far. In 4th place, we have Elden Ring. So, I am somebody who just recently got into Souls games. I played Dark Souls, that was, Demon Souls, I should say. I played Demon Souls, that was one of the launch titles I got for my PS5. Fell in love with it. I've tried Bloodborne in the past, and I couldn't really get into it. It was just too hard for me, and that wasn't very appealing. But I wanted to get Demon Souls just because of how amazing it looked. I played it. I didn't think I would get through it, but I did. I played the entire game. You guys can see my review. It's one of the only 10 out of 10s I've ever given on this channel. I thought it was such a fun game to play. So amazing. One of my favorite experiences of gaming I've had this year. And, you know, I'm really looking forward to playing Elden Ring, because you have George R.R. Martin, who did Game of Thrones. He is basically, I think, handling the lore or something like that to this game, so he kind of helped create the story, so it should have quite possibly, you know, one of their most in-depth, universes, or whatever you want to call it so far. So that should be really awesome. The story will probably be great. It's just up to the bosses, the combat, and all that stuff to be perfect. Because yeah, I mean, I love Demon Souls. I definitely want to get into Bloodborne. I think that's most people's favorite Souls game from what I've heard. And, you know, I think Elden Ring could definitely be up there because of, you know, who you have kind of behind it. As far as the release date goes, we don't actually have a confirmed release date. There was a leak recently, I think, that said like June 2021, which seems plausible, but we haven't gotten any gameplay yet. We've just got a cinematic trailer that came out a year ago. That's it. But, you know, people are so hyped for this game because of that. I recently bought Dark Souls Remastered and Dark Souls 3 for my PS5, so, you know, if I get through those games, then I'll for sure be getting Elden Ring, and I'll probably get even more into it. So yeah, looking forward to this game quite a bit. Alright guys, here we are, the final 3, the real meat and potatoes of 2021 gaming for me. In 3rd place, we have Horizon 2 Forbidden West. So I'm somebody who didn't even love the first Horizon game. I tried it a lot over the course of 3 years, and I finally finished it in 2020. I don't know, it just wasn't really my thing entirely, but there's something about Forbidden West that just hooks me. I think visually it looks very appealing, because the first game, you know, it's supposed to be post-apocalyptic and whatnot, but from that aspect, I always like it when you can kind of see wreckage of the old world and stuff, and the first game really didn't have that much of it, right? It kind of just felt like almost cavemen-esque, but with robots at the same time. Whereas from what we've seen from the second game so far, from Forbidden West, it looks like, you know, you can see lots of towers, you can see, you know, a bridge just destroyed and covered in stuff. I don't know, that aspect to me, just from a visual standpoint, it looks like from, you know, presentation-wise, it's going to be a masterpiece. Gameplay in the first one I liked. I'm not the best with bows in games because you have to be spot on with your aim, but I did like the gameplay in the first one. There was some good stuff from the story standpoint. I think the sequel, honestly, to me so far, looks better. And we don't even have gameplay yet. We've just got cinematic trailer. It's the case with a lot of these games. My next 2 picks are both ones that don't have gameplay yet, but yeah, I'm very looking forward to Forbidden West. I believe it's supposed to come out in the second half of 2021, probably. My guess is around August or September. That's probably where I'm going to predict that its release date will be. But yeah, definitely looking forward to picking up this title and trying it out. Alright, in 2nd place, we have Resident Evil 8 Village. So I have now played 3 Resident Evil titles. I played Resident Evil 7 Biohazard back, I think probably in like 2019 or 2018 I played that. No, sorry, it would have had to have been 2018. So I played that a couple years back. Then I played the Resident Evil 2 remake in 2019, and then I played the Resident Evil 3 remake literally a couple days ago. I just reviewed it. Of those three titles, my favorite is 7. 2 and 3 are very different from 7. They're more action horror games, whereas, 7 for me was a very suspenseful, not as combat-focused horror game that had a lot of really difficult and, not really difficult, but a lot of, interesting puzzles that I found very unique, and it was right up my alley from a horror standpoint. I played a little bit of the game in VR, and then gave up on that because it was just too much for me, and I switched over to regular, but it was a great experience. I definitely want to replay 7 before 8 comes out. 8 is sticking with that. 8 is a first-person game that seems to be more suspenseful than it is combat-focused. Again, we have a little bit of gameplay, I should say. We have 10 seconds of gameplay. I heard there's leaks recently about the game, story and stuff. And it is confirmed leaks because the company had to, try to stop it. I don't remember what the situation was, but there's been stuff like the ending and whatnot. I'm not going to look at any of that stuff. I don't really care about this series from a character standpoint, so I know there's some returning characters in this that people are excited for. None of that stuff means anything to me. I just think the setting seems cool. This was kind of like Transylvania-esque looking place, very wintry. It's on a giant hill, kind of, from what I've seen, and there's just a bunch of abandoned buildings and stuff. It looks really cool. There's witches and werewolves, so it's different for Resident Evil, because Resident Evil is normally zombies, obviously, so this looks like to be going in a different route, kind of like 7 did, and I like that continuation, the more suspenseful, mysterious horror over the action-y type that we've received in the 2 and 3 remakes. But yeah, overall, really looking forward to the game. I believe it's supposed to come out in April, which is not too far from now, so definitely looking forward to getting Resident Evil 8 Village. And finally, in first place, guys, if you know me, then you probably already know what my pick is. God of War Ragnarok. That's not even the confirmed title. Right now, it's just God of War with a blue circle around it. But everybody is sticking to calling it Ragnarok just because they said Ragnarok is coming. And I guess the text that's on the blue circle spells out Ragnarok if you convert it. So, probably going to be the title. I don't know. Point is, I can't wait for this game. And literally all we have is a logo drop. That's it. We have a logo drop and then the thing that said coming 2021. That's it. That's all we know about this game. And that's enough to make it my #1 most anticipated game of 2021. Just because God of War 2018 was such a phenomenal game. It was, in most people's opinion, the best PS4 exclusive. Mine was Uncharted 4, Thief's End, but that was my second favorite, I believe, when I did my list. I love that game so much. It was such an amazing experience. I had played God of War 3, and I liked that game quite a bit, but there was just something about God of War that was more special to me. It had a more in-depth story. The characters were more, deep and well-told. And, it was just such a phenomenal game. It has my favorite combat in any game. Ragnarok, it should just be all-out, action, honestly, because, there's now a god that's been killed. The end of the world or whatever is happening with Ragnarok occurring, so it should just be a crazy experience. I feel like they're going to be making it into a trilogy, so I feel like the game is going to have a big cliffhanger, but cannot wait for it. The fact that it's coming out in 2021 is insane, so very excited, and that is my #1 most anticipated game of 2021. So thank you guys for watching this video, and I will see you all next time. Bye.